Welcome to Executives at the Edge, Enterprise Edition, the podcast from Amplify, where enterprise leaders share bold ideas and practical strategies for navigating the AI-powered digital economy. I'm your host, Pascal Menezes. In each episode, we explore how enterprises are securing, automating, and scaling digital services across today's complex multi-cloud landscape. I am really so excited to have Raleigh Mann. He's the Senior Vice President of Technology for Williams-Sonoma. And Raleigh, welcome to Executive at the Edge. And today I believe we're going to cover some really fascinating topics. There's a huge complexity involved in the network shift to run and the stores. You're basically a retail shop. And you deal with a lot of complexities, including how well do you know things are secure of all the technology you buy, the vendors' equipment, and so on, including how do you get to provision all the sites for the local loops, and how does that show up correctly? Do you want APIs and portals? So really interesting episode. So with that, welcome. And if you can tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and Williams-Sonoma, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely, Pascal. Thanks for having me. Sure. I am Senior Vice President of Technology here at Williams-Sonoma. We are a multi-brand omni-retailer, meaning we have both the Williams-Sonoma brand itself. It's also the name of the parent company. We also have Pottery Barn Teen and Kids, which are brands, retail brands aimed at obviously teenagers and youngsters, in addition to the Pottery Barn brand, which is aimed for more mass appeal for homes, furnishings. And then we have a bunch of other brands, Rejuvenation, which is a bespoke brand for largely hardware and lighting. Came out of the Pacific Northwest, where they were doing reproduction and rehabilitation of harder to find home parts for craftsman homes and homes of the turn of the century era. And then we have West Elm, which is a much more modern brand. They're located in Brooklyn, and we have quite a few stores scattered about North America. And then some online-only brands like Mark & Graham, which is a gifting executive kind of gift personalization company. And then a more recent launched brand in Green Row, which is both ecological focused brand, but also in making heirloom furniture that you could pass down, generationally. So in addition to retail stores, of which we've got 550-ish, give or take on any given day, largely in North America, Canada, and the US, we also have a small set of stores in Australia and the UK, and some franchise partners in Mexico and the Middle East and APAC regions. We also do sourcing of product and contract manufacturing. We're also a manufacturer ourselves. We build a lot of our furniture in the US, both with fair trade, wood and, ecologically sourced materials that have low VOCs for volatile or organic chemicals and compounds, so that your baby crib isn't off-gassing all kinds of bad stuff. We also sell online. In fact, over 60% of our total revenue comes online. So we have a big commercial presence on the internet and have had since 1999. So we're your typical enterprise. We have six or so thousand corporate employees in many offices, largely headquartered in the Bay Area, but we also have them spread throughout. And we have manufacturing and supply chain facilities throughout the U.S. And sourcing offices throughout the globe. All of them connecting into, as branch offices, into our corporate network. We run our own data center as well as co-location facilities, and then, like anybody else, have a lot of stuff running in the cloud, whether it be SaaS-based applications or also workloads running in our own multi-tenancy of clouds, in addition to it running on-prem. So kind of your classic modern-day enterprise at this point.
Yeah, so very, very, very retail driven, obviously. And And so it's very interesting. You said over 500 stores, right? And so what are your challenges? Where do you see the biggest challenges that you face when it comes to building these out, securing, being scalable? How do you see it, and how do you think enterprises in generally see it, especially in the retail side?
Sure. A couple things to unpack all that. First and foremost, this is my first enterprise retail gig. I came from a classically large internet scale company directly to this one, where most of our challenges there were generally the products and services that we needed to consume didn't exist, so we had to create them ourselves. And then prior to that, I was in a special effects industry where we actually did movies, high performance compute, particle simulations, and rendering. So, very different engineering background of systems engineering coming together to make all these kind of unique things happen. In the enterprise, of course, we largely consume things off the shelf through VARs, and we may obviously use some open source code as well. But by and large, we're taking a lot of things and bringing them together to create these systems that work. And so in our enterprise, we consume your most common things that you'd expect. We're largely a Microsoft-based shop, so we have Microsoft 365 running in the cloud. We have an Azure tenant where we run some workloads in the cloud. And so, consuming that is pretty straightforward and easy. But then because we also run some things in very old, ways, traditional mini frame, if you will, AS400 IBM stuff and IBM I-Series as well, P-Series, as well as virtualization on-prem and Linux workloads. That means that we're buying a lot of software and then making sure that they interoperate and work so that ultimately the application or the service that the company's depending on, is working and is working in your traditional 4 to 5 nines capability. Our retail stores close. They're not open all the time, but the website is, and it's 24/7. And again, that's a combination of both on-prem and hosted. And so, the complexity of those systems ratchets up with every new service that you consume, whether it be a microservice on-prem or a SaaS-based service, or, in the case of our website or even social, there are a lot of dependencies that go out to other applications that are running out in somebody else's cloud, and then returning back into our own to then present, whether it be a schedule so that you can schedule a furniture delivery, that's through a third-party website, or a co-branded item that we're running a sale or special on. It may reach out to a vendor's website and pull in some live data there. So we're always surprised at how our border and edge has continued to both ebb and flow, and we can't think of what's mine and is ours to take care of, and what's theirs is theirs to take care of. Now those dependencies become so interlocked that you really need to know how your partners are built and how their single points of failure are addressed, or where they even exist. In many cases, they might not know because they're just running a service on top of somebody else's host. So it's important to start digging deep, right? Are they in multi-tenancy? Do they have, an active-active setup, or is it, is it just backed up? Or is there a cold spare, a warm spare, or a hot spare somewhere else? All of these you learn through sometimes trial and error, and then unfortunately, the business also consumes some services that we may not know about and have tied us together where we didn't have the opportunity to go through a design review first. Because they think of it as, it's just an after effect. We're just adding this small thing, this little widget on the website, and then you come to find out that widget's critical for, a transaction to complete. And so then we may learn the hard way that that the complexity is has arrived. That's created an item to go chase down when things don't render completely, for the customer on the website, or that transaction can't close. So I will say, it's a lot more complex than internet scale prior job, where largely it was about our own design, using our own bespoke things, and knowing when and where they'd fail. This is a lot more hidden complexity that you uncover, like I said, either through trial and error and inspection, or through a series of unfortunate events that somehow get triggered. And then you learn and back to the race of keeping things running. It's definitely a very different set of challenge than my past.
So for Williams-Sonoma, do you actually run an internet first strategy, meaning, or do you buy your own loops and transports for all the sites, and then on top of it, do you layer on your own cybersecurity on top of it? So I think our listeners would like to know more about how do you see the world, such a big organization, I would say, at least in North America. Do you do a DIY model? Do you a managed model? How do you buy the circuits, or you just rely on the internet? So some kind of, can you articulate those?
Sure, absolutely. The answer is yes to almost all of it. We do a little bit of everything everywhere. We do buy tail circuits, and we do buy managed service. Rare. I tend to avoid those for the most part, largely because I find in a managed service environment, you tend to either to take advantage of lower pricing, economies of scale. You tend to be in a lowest common denominator setup, or you pay a little bit extra and have your own tenant that's managed by the service provider, or it may be co-managed by them and us, in which case you'll end up paying a little bit more. So I consume whatever it takes to provide the service for the business, and in any location. What may become a preferred design pattern may not be available, may not be up to us. If we don't own the building, I may not be able to have multiple points of entry, and therefore we try to manage and make sure that we're not running business critical 24/7 services out of those locations if I don't have the diversity of service that I'd need. But yeah, we consume in our retail stores. Largely, it's DIA circuits, where we then do tunneling or an SD-WAN overlay on top of that, using it as just basically raw transport. And then we can manage our own application services on top of that, and security stack on top of that. We're in the middle of changing, not even in the middle. We're at the early stages of changing from what was a 6 year ago SD-WAN strategy, using MPLS circuits to this DIA circuit, and then 4G, 5G fixed wireless as not even alternative, but an also on service, coming into a newer SD-WAN that then has both SD-WAN tunnels coming back to our data centers, but then also a split tunnel out to trusted networks like Microsoft, or our own brands, instead of backhauling that the way we used to on the prior design. And then having fixed wireless is important for us, simply because in many of these stores we're in a mall, and that mall may be our local carrier. They may act as a local carrier to the actual local carrier that has one or more MPO connections into the mall. Sometimes we can bypass the mall and go direct to the local exchange, and then bring in our own preferred carriers, or may not have that option, in which case we'll order a circuit from whomever can deliver the bandwidth that we need. And then again, typically we would then form a tunnel over that, and bring that, control that traffic, either again coming back to one of our data centers if it's a backend service that we host, or out to the internet to one of the providers for any number of the services that we run there or SaaS-based applications to go direct there.
Yeah. So question for you, Raleigh, that brings up in mind. Number one, as you do a DIY mostly in the cybersecurity front, do the Amplify has a SASE certification, SD-WAN certification. Do you see value in that if it's certified by a third-party forum or association like us, you don't have to test the rigorously? Would that help? Does that help?
Yeah, Pascal. I mean, the whole reason I got involved with the Enterprise Leadership Council was to ensure that standards get set. Obviously, SASE means a lot of things to a lot of people. SD-WAN meant a lot of things to a lot of people. Not having a defined set of what you should expect and how it should operate has led to a lot of confusion out there, or a lot of hype sales or oversales or overpromise and underdeliver. And in an enterprise, when I'm buying something, a couple things. I may not always have the luxury of time or lab. There are basic tests that we'll have a vendor do for us, or maybe a third party do for us. There's obviously POCs that we'll run, but at the end of the day, it's got to stitch in together with a whole host of other things that I've consumed, and it just needs to work, and it needs to work as promised. And more than that, it needs to have a security first principle. There are a lot of security tools and platforms out there, but in many cases, the default security position might be open instead of closed, or permit instead of deny. And when you turn it over to a team, or when you bring it in, the team that's consuming that platform or that security function, may not have the time to read through the entire manual or sit down with a vendor, or the vendor itself may expect you to go through a VAR, and that VAR may not be as value added as you'd like, and not tell you that, oh, by the way, the default read permission for this is public and world, which isn't a position you'd assume in today's day. You'd expect, no, you should explicitly have to turn that on. But having these standards set, having interoperability tests, having a third party actually verify that the security posture of especially a security product or platform is security first, is narrow, and you have to open up that aperture to make sure that you're aware that you're expanding the horizon of its reachability, or who may have access to it, or what it may be touching is critical and paramount. I need to know that our reach as it ever expands, and our border and boundary as it gets further and further out there is secure. And like I said, I keep saying security first because it's security first and security last. It needs to be the bookends. There are many services out there, many cloud services that are known far and wide by enterprises, where their default permission is open, where the default read-write of a directory or a file share that is standard for their product offering is world readable and writable. And it doesn't make sense to me. Right. You wouldn't assume in today's modern age, with as many vulnerabilities that get posted every day, as easy it is for the bad guys out there to go and find these holes. It's not really a hole when it's an open door by default. I mean, that's not a hole at all. You need to know that it's there and close it. And that shouldn't be the case, right? It should come closed, and you need to open it so that you know it's open instead of later discovering that it's open. And I'm certainly not going to tattle on any of these services out there, but they are far more prevalent than you'd think. And as an example, and I'm not going to say that these may or may not apply, but whether it be an AWS or an Azure or a Salesforce or an Oracle, many of them may have default parameters that you would be surprised are not security first.
Wow. And so in the past, now obviously our program's up and running in general availability. I encourage all of the vendors and providers to get tested, but the vendor's number one because all the providers rely on them. But how in the past, before this, would you have to have your own team tested, or you just take their word from the product company you bought it for and just implement it and then learn from it later? Because I can SD-WAN would say, oh, okay, I'm not getting the performance, something's not working, traffic steering's not working, or blah, blah, blah. But in cybersecurity, saying, oh my God, I just got, hacked. That's not acceptable way of saying I learned from that, because that's just something that could cost you enormously. As you saw, the hacks have been happening to see Microsoft. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. The question was, how do we do this in the past? And I'd love to sit here and say, as a multi-tenured, long been around the block person in technology, I know better to not take a vendor's word for it. But sometimes in an enterprise, you may not have the luxury of time. You may have to very quickly consume a new product or service and put it into production very fast. Our procurement cycle can take a very long time. And the plans I made for this year, involving capital and operating expense and the budgets, I run my own P&L. We kick off our fiscal year in February. I may not be able to get the procurement done until, say, June, which is, for me, gives me 3 months or less to get it into production and fully working, because then I go into a freeze mode, running infrastructure and security. You don't like to make changes coming close to the holidays. So I also have an e-com development team that I partner with in-house, as well as a logistics team that are also laying down application development work that they're doing throughout the year. So my work needs to be done and all my major changes completed in September. And that gives them through October to settle down all of their deployment releases and make sure that they're working right. And then any bug fixes they need to do, so that come November, December, everything is just stability mode, right? So I have a very contracted schedule. So I would love to say, yes, we spend months, doing research and working through our own lab testing, and then, giving our own test criteria to a couple of vendors. Then they do a bake-off, and then the one that performs the best is the one that we consume. Sometimes it may be the one with the best commercial offering, right? It may actually come down to price and not always feature, right? It's a combination of those two. But sometimes it does come where the better the product isn't necessarily the one I end up consuming. Or I may actually have a non-compete reason for not choosing a product, in which case I may not have been able to run it through the battery of tests and make sure that the version that we tested is the one that is now shipping, which is the one that's now going into production. I may get a version that is 2 revisions or 3 revisions past what I tested. And it turns out that not everyone has cured all the regression bugs. A bug may reappear that was not in our test bed, or a new bug obviously would be introduced, because these things happen and they happen all the time. We're discovering them constantly, or we're learning about them. We may not be exposed to them, but then read through the release notes of the next version we're going to, and then decide, oh my, there's a much more catastrophic bug that we could be exposed to that may trigger it. They're not necessarily always present, but could be triggered. And so that's that's the nature of being an executive on the edge. It literally is the edge. There is a bleeding edge, and it is constantly, renewing itself. And then, the lessons we learn may not always be there. May not always be gone, or may not always be cured, right? I think many people experienced the CrowdStrike issue, exactly a year ago last week, where, we didn't have ring fence capabilities of keeping the deployment of a SaaS offering, that is both on-prem but is managed by and large with code releases, where you want security to be at the foremost, most common newest revision it can. And then, of course, we've seen how that's worked out. And of course, CrowdStrike's learned from that. They've created the ability for you to implement those ring fences and have a deployment cascade that is delayed and managed in-house. But you may not necessarily have turned that on. We have, but not everyone may know how to do that or the right way to approach it. They may not know, to kind of dog food it in a lower level environment first, and then make sure it works before proceeding into a default production environment. You'd like to think so. It's very common, and you'd think that as a large scale learned lesson that many enterprises have adopted that. But there are other products out there that have had that ring fence where I've talked to some peers of mine and they didn't know that they may be exposed to a similar event, having not activated those kind of controls. There's a lot to learn and know. And then, of course, with the advent of AI, there's more coming. And I would imagine an organization like Amplify, will adopt and manage, to create some standards that many of our vendors that we consume should want to participate in creating and maintaining testing and certification. There is too much for us to chase due to entropy or acts of nature. One of them should not be interoperability or, selling me a service that's not quite ready for prime time, but I'm paying for it as if it worked.
Well, Raleigh, I know we're coming to the end here, but thank you for your time. I think there's so much more information. We need to do another episode with you. We didn't get to even automation, how you're buying these local loops and these tail loops.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that because the LSO model has been out there for a while. But now that there's an enterprise method for us to consume those, I'd love to talk to you about that, Pascal, because I'm a big an eager fan to implement that in my enterprise.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it. Give us a real fast rundown on your thoughts about this. That'd be really cool.
I'll give you a hot take, right? So, obviously wholesaler to retailer, there are the ability for circuit providers to buy, sell, and trade, circuits and wavelength and space and expand product offerings so that if you're, a sole sourced vendor for somebody that like me, where I'm consuming products globally, but don't necessarily want to manage vendors across the globe and telecom vendors at that in every small region to large region that they may exist. I'd prefer to have a sole named partner, but I also want my services met and have my kind of minimum and maximum cost applications. I want to know what variables are out there of services that I can consume in a new market that I'm just moving into, and then have it managed and billed through my vendor. But I also want to know like circuit impairment, right? We have the SIM standard coming out so that I can, through my ITSM portal, automatically have tickets open that I have a circuit that's going to go under maintenance. I can open up a change ticket to warn my environment that, hey, this known path is going to go down due to scheduled maintenance. And then when that maintenance is done, I can have my own team check to make sure, is that circuit good to actually go in just because the time window is closed? Is the repair or is the expansion of that service functioning the way it is before I bring it into path for carrying production traffic, without having to have an army of people making phone calls and checking, are you done? Is it repaired? Is it good? And that's just with a sole source. Now, that vendor is consuming products and services from other telecom vendors, and they're having to coordinate. Of course, all of this should be done through an API. It's silly that it wouldn't be. And it's, just as silly that as an enterprise that has, many capabilities of lighting up and leveraging APIs, as more and more of us do, and we expect to through, SaaS offerings. Those are generally API exposed items, and the integration of our tool chain and automation requires APIs. Of course, I should have the ability to know that my circuit inventory, where it is it operating, is it functional, and are there other services that I could light up to work around maybe a long-term repair or consume a service that's a new offering, but only in a small market, not my entirety enterprise exposed to it. I may want to know about that and then be able to cherry pick that service into my enterprise all day long. That's the beauty of having an API and having it integrate into my own tool chain.
Yeah, so I think many folks think that it's a portal, but you don't want portals.
No.
Because portals mean swivel chair. You want APIs because you have your own automation system.
Correct.
You're a big shop. You want machine to machine. You do not want people and portals involved and all that. And so I always think of that. People are like portals. They think they put portals because I know the hyperscalers use portals. But at the end of the day, big shops like you don't want portals. They want APIs, right?
Not at all, right? I mean, a portal was how the internet was introduced to people, 25 years ago, right? Or 20, even 30, right? AOL was the portal to the internet. It wasn't really the internet. You'd go to a subsection of sports, and then you'd click on NFL, and then that would take you to the essence of the internet. That's a portal. Those days are gone. We don't need those days, frankly. At this scale and at this larger footprint, I expect I need to make a call, get an immediate satisfaction back that call has been served, and get a positive acknowledgement so that I can close my ticket. I can check my billing system that everything is going to work straight up, and not place an order where it's working as a proxy on behalf of my enterprise, which may actually not even be service calls on their back end. If it's a portal, for all I know, it's dropping a ticket into somebody's queue, and then they're going and doing some manual work. I don't want that. I need to know that it's actually the order's been received, it's been taken, it's been balanced against my contract, it's been activated, and it is what I expected it to be. And that is how you do that through APIs. A portal does not give me that warm and fuzzy feeling that I'm working in the modern era at all.
Well, Raleigh, I think we've come to the end of our time, and thank you for taking the time here. Very interesting topic and really great perspective to see really from your end as a big enterprise what the pain points are. And I know, you being a very top level executive, senior vice president, you're accountable for lots of stuff. So to sleep at night, to make sure you have a life, most people take this for granted. At the end of the day, the buck stops at you for the technology side. And this stuff has to be automated, secured. It should be just, what we think turnkey, but a lot of times it's not. Otherwise, you're have a miserable life. So with that, I've got to end, but thank you so much, Raleigh, for taking your time.
You bet, Pascal. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Executives at the Edge, brought to you by Amplify. Be sure to follow, share, and leave a review. Catch every episode on your favorite platform or visit us at amplify.net.